This video is brought to you by HalloCasa. Our tool transforms independent local real estate agents to global real estate agents. Create your own profile for free and get contacted by international investors. Sign up with the link in the description. Hello and welcome everyone to our 229th session of HalloCasa. My name is Michael and today I'm talking to Jerry Hammond from Toronto, Canada. Jerry is the president and CEO of Hammond International Properties, a boutique brokerage specializing in luxury real estate. Since 1993, he has built a reputation as one of Canada's top agents, representing leading luxury home builders and consistently delivering results through all market cycles. Recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award and named among the top 100 agents in Canada, Jerry is also recognized as an expert in real estate development and luxury marketing. Jerry, thank you so much for your time. Always glad and happy to talk with people from Toronto. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience in your own words?
Well, first of all, allow me to thank you as well for the opportunity and to sit here today and to broadcast our story. I really appreciate that. Every moment means a lot, and certainly I love to spread the word out and the success that we've had and share it with others. I'm Jerry Hammond from Toronto, Canada, born and raised in Toronto, Canada. I'm the CEO and president of Hammond International Properties. The company's in its 12th year, and we discovered the company when I found out that a lot of other luxury hotels were opening up in the city of Toronto. And we thought they had done their due diligence, and why not a luxury real estate company to accompany that, since we were becoming such an international city altogether. And so we discovered that there was a niche in the market that had to be opened. We opened up the company, and the company took off like wildfire right away. So we knew we were onto something. And so ever since that day, we've been considered one of the top 100 firms in the world, and certainly the number one luxury company in Canada for the last 5 years. So everything that we're doing allows us to touch on to lifestyle. We utilize AI. We use a lot of different functions to make sure the company stays relevant, ahead of the market, and stays relevant to the luxury consumer daily.
Let's start from the beginning. You have a lot of experience in real estate. First question, what made you motivate jumping into real estate? You could also go into banking, into construction, retail,
Right.
what have you.
Sure. Well, I used to help out in a men's boutique on Saturdays, and it was luxurious. It was one of the most expensive boutiques here in Toronto. And I saw a lot of interesting people come in, and I really liked the way they were treating them. And they had a little cappuccino espresso bar on the second floor where they could sit people down, very casual, a really non-sales approach to selling. And that's what really hit the buttons the right way, so to speak. And on that path, I went through school. I was looking for my opportunities. I was actually going to law school. That's where I was going to go. And I had a friend who was in law school, and he was an articling student. And I saw the way they were working him from, 9 to after 12 midnight. And I said to myself, gosh, if I'm going to do something, I might as well do something for myself. And I thought that, what other profession allows us to, connect with people, while really not selling and accommodating the marketplace, but also where I could, bring out my true personality, not be seated behind a desk, and really enjoy the process. And that was real estate. And everybody pressured me at the time to sort of focus on the law versus the real estate, because the market was awful. And this was in the early 90s. And everybody said, listen, what are you doing in real estate? It's not a good market. You might as well go do something else. But I knew, and I had this deep desire that real estate was the path to take, and the journey that I was going to fulfill in my life.
Did you then directly already went into or go into luxury real estate, or where did you start? Where was
Yeah,
the start?
okay. When you start out, you sort of sell everything to everyone. And you've got a real estate license. And what does that real estate license really mean? It defines that you can sell real estate, and it doesn't matter where it is, how far it is, and you don't account for your time. You don't account for your income. You just say, okay, I've got a real estate license, and here we go. And so that's how it first got started. But then my time became very valuable because my career did excel, and I had to find a way to make more money for my time. And obviously in our business, it's a commission-based business. We don't get paid, hourly. We don't have a salary. So in order to fulfill that obligation to myself, I said, I'm going to sell more expensive product. And so we started taking a deep dive into what that looked like. So a higher price point in the marketplace. I then went down to the US because there was nothing in Canada that could support my mission at that time. And I found some other companies that strictly focused on luxury, and they were networks. So I attended my first conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I met and networked with some of the most incredible people. And that really opened up my eyes. I saw the marketing packages, I saw what they were doing, I saw the type of product they were selling. And when I came back to Canada, I essentially took some of the ideas and brought them into the Canadian market and started launching it here in Canada. And I found that if something works somewhere else really well, there's no reason to really reinvent it. You absorb the ideas, make them better, and then your market could essentially adapt to that similar strategy. And that's what I did.
What for a profile change did you have to undergo, or maybe like shapeshift into a new role you felt going into luxury? Is that a certain way of dealing with the respective clients differently? Is the sales cycle different? Do they need more information? Do you have to treat them differently? What do you think is important also for later on your career to thrive in this market in the luxury segment?
Yeah, all essential questions and very good questions because I always say if you ask the right questions, you're going to get the right answer. Well, in my case, it was, a lot of people had said to me, you've got a great personality. You seem to get along with people quite well. You can adapt to their demographics, their age group, and your communication skills are very strong. And so that was an essential part of my stepping stone. And that's an essential part in luxury real estate. So you have to be respectful of these people. They've worked very hard in their own careers. They've earned whatever they've earned and can afford whatever they can afford, and obviously buy into a very luxurious type of lifestyle and home in our case. And so other points of interest along our path were, understanding that your personality had to be right, that you had to treat them with respect, that you had to listen twice as much as you talk. Because when you listen twice as much as you talk, you're really listening to the client, absorbing what they're saying, and they'll be able to share with you what you need to know in order to help them along their journey and find them what they need to find. And so those are just some of the critical points. The other critical points that I found over time was luxury is defined and it's its own subject. And what does that mean? It means that these group of people are living a very different lifestyle than the masses. They're going to different places. They're shopping at different places. Their friends are very different. The restaurants they go to are very different. And in that, the hotels that they're staying at is very different. And within that world, that's what you had to adapt to be. So if you could understand that world and if you could live in that world and you could see what other, hotel companies are doing or restaurants are doing to service that clientele, if you adapted those best practices, now you could adhere to them and then practice in your own world and focus on real estate with that adaptation.
Reading between the lines and really understanding the client and what he or she says is a real skill, because on the one hand, you have the people, they say something and they think they want something, but in the end, it's actually something totally different. Is that something you think is one of the key skills when listening and understanding the client?
One thing, yeah, that's exactly right. So one thing we try to understand is body language, communication, what they're really saying, trying to understand the story behind the story so we can read into maybe their possible motivation behind making the move. These are all key skill sets that over time you'll have to develop and really be in tune with that clientele. Because if you're not, you're going to be, there's a disconnect. And that disconnect takes out the synergy and really the human element out of your proper communication skills with everybody. And once you lose that, believe it or not, clients can feel it. It's an energy that we can't see or feel, but clients can feel it. And whether your work can be phenomenal, but if you're not communicating properly, if you don't come off the right way, if you come off with a big ego, or if you come off being too abrasive and you're not saying the right words and you're not exploring the right discussions in terms of your true understanding in the global marketplace, or what's newsworthy, or interest rates, or federal government's interventions with the current marketplace, you're going to be out of tune with that clientele because they are very well in tune with all that information, and they're very well read in order to support their own initiatives in their own lives with their own businesses.
You were the first one. You had like a certain first mover advantage, you said, when launching Hammond International Properties. But obviously, there are many people also having this first mover advantage and they don't succeed. What do you think was one of the key sources for you to make sure that you're also being acknowledged and also accepted by the clientele, apart from the element of customer excellence, understanding the client, but maybe even also regarding the people who want to sell? Because I believe obtaining the inventory of the luxury real estate, trusting you regarding, okay, I want to market it, but maybe even a lot of off market there because people don't want to reveal a lot of information. They don't even want to reveal that they're selling their houses. What do you think was like one of the other elements which made you thrive in this market?
Well, I've been very fortunate and blessed. I've always surrounded myself with really successful people, if you want to call it that. And all these people are high achievers. They've done really well in their own businesses. Their expectations for their own lives were very high. And so my bar has always been set quite high. And based on that understanding and, being friendly with them and just talking with them and, in general terms, I sort of adapted some of their best practices. And so I started asking myself, what made that person? Because they also started a business or started a company. How did they adapt the rules in their life to do really well, stay relevant in the marketplace and excel? And I think that if you tap into all the good that life has to offer and all the good things that people have demonstrated before you, and I always say success leaves clues. So when somebody else is successful, they've done things in their lifetime or in their world to make them successful. And if you take just some of those attributes and adapt them into your own daily practice, into your own daily understanding, you'll channel the same energy and you'll ask yourself the same questions to get the same results or better results. And I'm the type of person that never wanted to fail. So I never introduce anything unless I know that it's somewhat perfect. Now you can say, well, you're really hard on yourself, and what is the true sense of perfection? Well, I in my own world have set the bar really high. I love to go away to wonderful places. I love to eat at great restaurants. I seem to have adapted, only wanting some of the very best things that life has to offer. So in that adaptation, I bring that into my own world, my personal life, but I also allow it to thrive through my business life. And that's my way of channeling my energy and my knowledge through my business. So at the beginning, what was interesting was I had mentioned that there were 4 hotels that were being opened up here in Toronto. And they were the Ritz-Carlton, a brand new Four Seasons, the Shangri-La, and at the time it was a Trump, but now it's the St. Regis. And I said to myself, they must have gained their knowledge through what Toronto was becoming. And I tapped into that because, when you're in real estate, you're sort of the front lines of what's happening in society. You can get a pulse on what's happening in the world of real estate, what people are looking for, maybe bumping into different people that speak different languages or, coming from all different walks of life. So I kind of tapped into that. That was my aha moment or my epiphany. And then during my travels around the world, one of them was Switzerland, of course. I would go to some of the top real estate brokerages around the world. What I did notice that most of them were boutique operated, and most of them were running at a very high level in terms of their personal style and what they did for their communities wherever they were serving. And so we looked at that, studied it, and then, of course, we took that business model and we adapted it to the Toronto market. And then, of course, we realized that the Toronto market was missing what we had adapted, and the consumer really embraced it, and it took off from day one. So, which was something that I didn't really realize. And then we've never had a down year. We grow at about 15 to 20% a year, even in a down economy. And we've been very fortunate. And as the time right now in Toronto is very is not so strong in the real estate world, we're able to adapt best practices, and people want it and embrace it. Because I think when times are like this, people want the companies that are really standing out and that can perform and showcase their properties the way they need to be showcased. And of course, that adds value, subjective value in many cases.
One hand, you have obviously this striving for excellence and really becoming very successful. On the other hand, there's also, you mentioned one element regarding the energetic approach. And do you think sometimes you cannot control everything and you just have to trust your gut feeling and maybe
Yes.
intuition and say, okay, actually, I'm just like, I feel it. I surrender a little bit to the outcome, but deep down, I feel this is the right track to go because I also know that I only can control things within my own influence of behavior and of actions.
That's a very valid point and a really interesting question. What's amazing about that question is that, yes, I think that if you're onto something good, it's organically going to grow. Now, when you put it into practice and you showcase it in front of people, the consumer will tell you how great it is. It's not really up to you, but if you've got a great idea and you can demonstrate that it's a great idea and you put it out into practice, if the consumer loves the idea, if they think it's phenomenal, then you're onto something. Now, stay with that channel and, stay along that road and that path because that's giving you good results. And it's those little things that come along your path and your journey where people are saying, you know what, you're doing a wonderful job. We love your work. We've seen what you've done. We've seen your signs around. We understand who you are. We follow your philosophy. And you want to know something? That's going to keep you on the track of success. And we've been very fortunate that we keep reinventing ourselves here at Hammond. So we never become complacent about who we are and what we bring to the marketplace, whether that be new marketing ideas, new captions, new ways of photography, keeping up with technology, using AI to help us, better suited to that clientele and staying relevant and staying ahead of the market. And that allows us to stay ahead of the competition because it's very hard if you're at the forefront and you're leaders in an industry, you have to keep that leadership role. You have a responsibility not only to yourself and the people that work in your organization, but now to society in general, because you've set the bar up so high that they just expect it. Many clients have told us in the past that the reason why we hire you and your company is because you can outperform and you can certainly focus on marketing our house and get us a higher price. And that's what really makes a big difference. And that's why they hire us. So we've taken over a lot of situations where people have hired other organizations. Those organizations have failed in this environment. We've taken over and we've had a lot of success. And it's only because of our formula and everything that we put forward in order to capture attention in the marketplace, keep ourselves relevant, and the quality of our work. I always say when the quality of the work is not taken away from whatever you're doing, whether that, whether you're built, whether you're uh, building cars or handbags or shoes, when the quality stays up, people take notice. People have a sense of attainment for the most part, and people want to make more in order to earn more to provide them with a certain way of being satisfied in life in general. And we've tapped into that. And when you get to understand the world of luxury and you study all the wonderful brands that are out there, they've adapted the similar practices and same psychology, if you want to call it, into their sales practice. And that's what that element, that's the magic for that consumer, especially at the luxury level.
When you talk, it sounds like so rosy-dosy, everything perfect, but I don't assume that it was like that when you started. Every entrepreneurial journey has their challenges and their very, let's say, strong elements of hiccups, which don't only last a weekend, but maybe even a bit longer. What do you think? How was that journey? What do you think made you also still push through and say, no, I'm so determined to go after that? Or was it a smooth sail?
Yeah, no, it's never a smooth sail, but I always say you succeed one of two ways. It's either inspiration or desperation. Well, we never want to get desperate because that's not a good position to be in. Although desperation does create sometimes the right questions in order to get out of whatever problem you may have. But inspiration is something that we want to keep instilled in ourselves over the long term. And so we can be inspired in so many different ways. I think just in our daily lives, I mean, just to be thankful and grateful for the simple things in life or, that nature around us. I think when we sit down and we understand the world at a whole and how miraculous this world is in terms of, when you travel, you go to different cultures, you try different foods, you see different people, they're living their own lives, or, when you see different landscape, or, if you just experience something different, that brings a whole new dimension into your personal life. And it helps inspire you and keeps you inspired. And when you're out there searching in general, if you're looking at other brands or you're just looking at the way things are designed or things are positioned or how successful they are in the marketplace, those are the things you identify. And that's the little bit of magic or the Einstein behind what makes it successful. And it takes a lot of, digging deep. I mean, nothing's easy. I mean, you need to surround yourself by great people. And what I mean by that is just a great team that shares in your vision and that can really adapt your vision and now put it out on paper or put it out into the real world. And so I've been fortunate that I've always tried to find the best of what we have to offer here in the Greater Toronto Area, working with some of the greatest companies locally to help us build our platform, help us build our future, and help gain that momentum. Once you build that team is essential to keep together to continue on that vision, and they'll assist you. Once that vision becomes exciting, it becomes successful, they get inspired, you get inspired. All of a sudden, the team has this synergy. It's always better than one. Because when you're working with others who adapt their own best practices into their own fields, they can take you on the journey that you want to go on. And I think I've always been an optimist by nature, never been a pessimist, and it's through that optimistic thinking and maybe some thinking that's not so rational at times where I get through the problems that I have. And I never think a problem's ever too big. I always believe that, we're placed here to solve the problems. So if there's ever a problem that we have to deal with, and I've had my set of problems, but I've gotten around them and I've dealt with them. And I said, well, how can I learn from this? What can I take out of this problem to sort of better myself, better my practice, be better with engaging with people? I never looked at it as a real setback. I looked at it as it's happening for a reason. And if I take the reason out of the problem, it can help me adapt to my role in society or in my business. And I think that's a very different way of thinking. Because I think what happens is people get caught up in their problems, they bury themselves in their problems, and they think they never get out of it. And there's always light at the end of every tunnel. As long as you stay focused and you understand how to deal with it, very practically, very pragmatically, be optimistic about it, take it one step at a time. Don't let it overwhelm you. Once you allow it to overwhelm you, it will consume you. And, problems come and go. They'll come and go whenever they happen. It's just a matter of now dealing with those problems and setting them not so much in the front of what you're doing, but on the side so you can continue moving forward. I think that's good advice for everyone.
It reflects perfectly your growth mindset, which you mentioned in the beginning. And it also boils down to trusting yourself and having
Yes.
faith versus being fear-based and contract basically into an element that you avoid things. And there's this saying, what you avoid controls you, and you have to look basically the tiger into the eyes and say, okay, I got this problem right now, and let's see like how we solve it. And you mentioned one very important element here is your team. I think you mentioned it like 3 or 4 times when you were just right now talking. How do you ensure that you vet for the right people and that they also stay motivated? Because looking at your website, you have like an excellent team of people and they have a global mindset. You can see that. But they're also obviously potentially conducting operational excellence on a daily and weekly level. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I think what happens is in life you have to be selective. And whether that be selective in choosing your people, so we like to think that we're cherry picking whoever's working in the organization. So there's a very high entry, a high level of entry to the barrier of entering into the organization. And we keep it at that, and we keep it small, we keep it tight, and we keep it exclusive. And for that reason, the people in the organization really benefit from that. They love the exclusivity and they love the high values that we provided for the organization and the culture and the people that work within it. And, we always pay our bills. We make sure that, everybody's satisfied with the work that they're producing. I check up on everyone in the organization. I start texting people very early in the morning and sometimes very late at night to make sure they're on top of their responsibilities to keep moving us forward. They understand me as a leader to make sure that I have the responsibility to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. We get it in a timely fashion, but then the production at the end of it is exactly what we want to help us move forward. So I think as a leader in an organization, you have a deep responsibility. You start the tone, you start the energy, you start the expectation. And when people see that in you and how engaged you are and how motivated and, enthusiastic you are about what you're doing, I think it rubs off with others. I think most people want to be inspired. They want this sense of inspiration that they can do more, that they could be more. And so I've been very fortunate that I push people a little bit to for them to believe in themselves more than they believe in them than who they believe in. And so I'm enabling myself to do that, and I can see what it does for others. And what it does for others, it gets them to commit at a higher level. It gets them to recognize that they have more in themselves than what they've demonstrated to themselves. And when you put all of that together, the magic that comes out of that is truly incredible. And I think more of us need inspiration because I think inspiration's the key factor to building confidence and building a successful future and understanding the vision of wherever you're going.
Let's jump into the market and also the neighborhoods you're serving. You are serving the luxury aspects. Is it in Toronto? How is that structured? Do you have certain neighborhoods which are purely luxury, and then you have like other neighborhoods which are not? Or are
Yeah.
certain luxury homes spread around here and there? How can we imagine for people like me who have never been in the Toronto area?
Yeah, so we have a fundamental system here called farming. We've defined it as our farm areas. And so when I first entered into the market, I said, okay, what does my farming area look like? And a lot of people are very geographic about their farming. In other words, they market one area and they stay within that area. What we did is we looked at it from strictly a luxury point of view. So we defined what was the most luxurious areas in the city of Toronto. What defined that? It was defined by the schools. It was defined by the price points of the properties. Of course, the architecture, the communities as a whole. So we narrowed that down to about 35,000 homes in the Greater Toronto area. And we market within those 35,000 homes. And those are our clients. We serve them, we benefit from them. We get to be great advocates towards what we're doing for those communities, and that's how we stay focused. And we've dedicated ourselves strictly in that market. A long time ago, I attended a conference, and they said, if you're going to succeed in any business, find out what your specialized knowledge is. And when you become an expert and find your niche in that marketplace, that's where people start to recognize you, because people don't want people that have general knowledge. That's not a specialty. People don't necessarily want to do business where somebody has a little, showcasing a little bit of everything. So your brand has to be hyper focused on the market that you're focusing on, and that's what we're doing here at Hammond, focusing strictly on luxury. So we covered 35,000 homes. We market them continuously. We have a machine sort of behind the scenes that's working on our social programs, that's getting all our videos done, our photography done, and this is a 24-hour cycle. So you can imagine we need cash flow to support that cycle. And so our agents are very strong about, maintaining their standards so they support themselves as well as the organization and the consumer, even in this type of environment to get, things done the way we want them done.
Apart from that, you're also very active on events. You do events,
Yes.
obviously, for clientele, for potential prospects. What is that about? What is the style of those events we are creating?
Yeah, so we've designed these events that are hosted at one of our magnificent homes. One of the homes we just sold was a home priced at just under 15 million, and we hosted an event there, and we will bring in other luxury partners. So whether they be partners and affiliates, car companies, art companies, and it'll be by invitation only. And we had about 500 people attend this event, so it was very exciting. And we sold the house soon after. And this house had sat on the market for a few years without receiving great offers or didn't get the attention that it deserves. Of course, we revamped the entire perception of the way the house would appear to the marketplace in terms of video, photography, our scripting, and then we brought it out into the market. When we hosted the event, the buyer who was interested in the house was a little disappointed in us. She said, "How can you host an event when this is my home?" And so, because she had come to see the house, I said, "Well, we plan these events months in advance, like 2 to 3 months in advance, to organize them, to make sure everybody's going to be there, all the invitations." So after the event, she comes back and she says, "Well, I'm giving you an offer. This is my home, and I'm going to buy it." And that was really interesting. So that was sort of the key factor of this event. It's happened to us a few other times. But when we bring like-minded people together in a home like this, and people get to see a home where they wouldn't be able to step in otherwise, there's a lot of interesting things that begin to happen. They can appreciate the architecture, they can appreciate the neighborhood, they can appreciate the partners, so the lifestyle aspect that we bring to the events, and then we get to engage with them one on one. So we're not always chasing them on their timelines and having to meet them wherever they need to be met at a certain time. We bring them all together. We engage, we talk, we provide a charitable foundation at each event. So we're giving back to the community that we're serving. And we've really benefited from these, I call them soiree events that we host. And they've been very successful. And a lot of people just want to come out and see what the house has to offer and what it looks like. So that's been very exciting.
It's more being like a magnet than a chaser, and it's definitely more
Exactly.
attractive because once you have something to offer which is attractive, then people should feel and also have the ability to come and approach and talk to you at their own terms when they want and the way they want. Regarding the charity aspects from your side, you are engaged in a couple, which I think is very impressive and is amazing. You have a couple of charities you're involved in. Tell us a bit about those.
Certainly. So, we always, something about doing well is always giving back. You have to give back. If you don't give back, you're losing that sense of contribution. And communities want to understand that you're giving back to the communities or you're giving back to a good cause. And really, at the end of the day, it's good for the entire sentiment of the organization, the culture, and of course, you're not always taking. You have to somehow give back. And we always try to find a organization that is in need, and that we can give back, and that's really meaningful for us. In fact, every time we sell a property, we give a letter to the owner asking them to choose a charity of their choice. So when we close the transaction, we're able to give back and donate on their behalf. So that's a very important component to what we're doing. We don't want people thinking, these guys are selling, they're making a lot of money, and they're not somehow touching us in different ways. So whether that be selling their homes or giving back, or understanding the cause of the charity that we that are meaningful to us. So we just feel that that's a great touch point for us to really connect with clients and then connect with the communities that we're serving and really giving back, like, honestly, generously. So it's just the right thing to do, I'd have to say.
Coming to the status of the current market, it's a bit level even right now. I hear from at least like different sources that it's stealth, that it's like not happening a lot. Is that also the fact for the luxury real estate market, or is that living and working in its own terms because rich people live in abundance and they can actually always pull their gold coins out of their vault and maybe even take advantage of market
True.
down times. Yesterday, I talked to Matthias from Austria. Market has dropped significantly. Warren Buffett says stock market is the only market where people don't buy and discount. How do you feel it in the luxury segment at the moment?
Yeah, it's an interesting market because, as I said, luxury in itself is a topic, a conversation. It's certainly an educational process to understand. Now, so we look at things here at Hammond on a global scale. We narrow it down to North America, and then we focus on the Toronto market and what's happening in the Toronto market to sort of engage ourselves with clients here, and so they can understand that we're looking at things very differently because the world has changed in the world of luxury. The good thing about it is that, people let's say in the last 5 to 10 years have made a lot of capital. And one of them being in real estate. And they're looking for diverse portfolios. They've invested in unique properties around the world, just not in the GTA. And they're looking for a unique opportunity to live, to have a part of their portfolios actively working for them. And real estate has played a key role in that. And what we've noticed is the luxury market is still scarce for the most part because of the amount of capital that people have made in the luxury sector. And so you're right, it becomes a buying opportunity, a way to create leverage for both succession planning, diversity, in terms of, where they're investing, where they're living. A lot of people in general now are moving to different places to allocate capital to different countries because of laws, because of federal interference, maybe for, wealth preservation down the road. That's playing a key role, and succession planning. And they can run their businesses from anywhere in the world. Or they become a global entity where, staying in one place isn't as important as it used to be because of the internet, because of Zoom, because of the way we can, do things anywhere in the world. I know when I go away, I take my phone and nobody necessarily knows where I am in the world, and we're still conducting business and we're still sending out emails and we're still, communicating accordingly, and we can still accept and send back offers accordingly and work very mobile. So the world has changed. And the adaptation of that luxury consumer has also changed. And they're willing to find opportunity where they can, in a down market or in an up market. And they are more focused on where countries are focusing on building wealth. That seems to be a key factor. We've seen Dubai take off like crazy. Singapore is still very strong. We used to have a large contingency of Chinese coming here. Our federal government sort of closed the door on foreign ownership, which didn't play a key role into our marketplace because we were thriving prior to that. So they found other places to go to. And, the luxury consumer is looking for wealth preservation as well as opportunities where they can, adapt themselves in different marketplaces. So unless governments understand that these people play a key role, they may not play the whole role, but they play a key role in society. you know, and they keep taxing them at higher levels, that's not going to be the way the luxury consumer adapts to the area that they want to live. In fact, it's taking them away, and they're focusing on places that are going to give them more opportunity.
Absolutely. Exactly saying what Cosmas Theodoridis said from CEPI in Europe, and he spoke before the European Parliament. And he is saying taxes doesn't really work because you see it in the UK. People are just leaving, going to Italy or
That's right.
Greece or Dubai, and they know how to evade the taxes, or they create companies, and then they have like a different vehicle in order to make sure that they don't have to pay taxes in a legal way. Where do you think the market is going right now? Either in Toronto, for where your nucleus of operation obviously lies, but also
Yeah.
on your global business.
Well, I think there is a global recession going on right now, whether they want to say that or not. There is a shift. Capital has shifted towards other investments as well, like AI versus real estate. A lot of people are investing in Bitcoin and other forms of investments. The younger generation is focusing on other ways to create capital rather than investing back into real estate because the barrier to entry is so high for them to enter into the market. So what we're seeing is there is consistency around the world about the similar stories that are going on, and I'm not too sure why this is so evident in all markets that we can converse in, because it seems to be quite consistent. So what I'm thinking is if this is becoming a global discussion, then you can find out those global problems and resolve them. And for some reason, they're not being resolved. There's just a disconnect, I've always thought, between government and people. And they're on a reactionary mode versus a proactive mode to fix the problems prior to happening. So there's that delay because of the bureaucracy, because of the red tape that's involved. I think, overall, governments have to allow society and free enterprise and a capitalistic system to continue moving forward. It benefits everybody at the end of the day because, in times like this, we've seen theft pick up. We've seen people getting desperate. In desperate times, people take desperate measures. And that's not what we want in society. And it's obvious around the world. So, unless we can inspire people, get them going to where they want to go, it doesn't have to be at the same level. Not everybody has to become a billionaire or a millionaire, or, in some cases, there may be a trillionaire in our lifetime. I think that they have to continue on this track of inspiration and, building goodness into people, wanting them to aspire to whatever they want to aspire to be. And that's the way we can really get people to want what they want and to move forward and to resolve some of the problems that we're currently experiencing. And so I'm hoping and I'm also praying that, people see that because we can see that in society. Wars are harming, our kids, and the information that's out there is so obvious and it doesn't help. Then from a humanitarian point of view, where do we step in? Who are we as people of this earth to not take care of these issues? There's a lot of information out there that's just information overload. And if we would just allow each individual to stay focused on their respective fields and really gain notoriety and excel, and keep the capital in their pockets a little bit longer because it's going to come right back out. They're not going to keep it in their mattresses. They're going to invest it out there and they're going to look for opportunity because everything's transparent. If we look at the internet, if we look at social media, we can see that people are focusing on the good of what's happening around the world or the inspiration of what's happening around the world. And this next generation is adapting to that visual effect of life. And they want that. And if they want that, we have to allow them to embrace it so they can grow and they can find opportunity. Because right now, what's disengaging with the younger people who haven't made their million or millions or, whatever they want to make is that they're disengaged with the market because the market's so hard to enter into. We have to take that entry to barrier just a little bit lower, allow them to grow in society and build this next wave of opportunity for all the younger people because they play a key role in growth. And we definitely need that because otherwise what you're relying on is the current people that are extremely wealthy. They're going to pay more taxes. That tax those taxes are only going to go back into the system. We know that governments are not necessarily spending it the right way. There's a lot of mistreatment for capital in terms of being responsible. I always say if you want to spend a dollar, take it out of your own pocket. If somebody gives it to you, you're going to take it for granted. And so we all have to be more accountable for spending that money. And I think, people realize that. Kids see that today. They're never taught about capital in general in the school system, which is a real problem. And unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic world, and it doesn't matter where you live. If you can adapt certain traits into your world, you can adopt yourself to being quite successful overall. But we have to open up the channels. There's no doubt about it. People out there are generally asking for it. They're requesting it. They don't want to be suppressed. They don't want to be controlled. They don't want to be under a system of an autocracy either, or a non-democracy, so to speak. So I think people want that in general. Otherwise, you're stifling them, and you're closing the doors for opportunity for this next generation for growth. And we're going through a growing population around the world. We're going through, foods. We're in need of more food. We're in need of so many more things, but we have to grow into it. And you have to allow the people that are part of that society to also grow into that opportunity. And I really believe that you have to give a little bit more in order for these people to feel that they're getting more out of society.
Jerry, thank you so much for this conversation. I know your time is limited, and I really appreciate everything you were going into regarding the details. I really appreciate that you walked us through your early career, how you started your business, from going into luxury, into thriving, into excellence with customer service to its best. Yeah, we mentioned a little bit also the approach of faith versus fear, and you went very, very deep regarding your growth mindset and how you conduct business and your attitude towards life. And I also see that you have a very strong value-based system and foundation on which you conduct your business. You also told us very nicely about Toronto neighborhoods you are serving and how you make sure that you are attracting the right people, be it via the events, be it via your AI tools and your top-notch digital services in order to enhance the listings, but also giving back with your charity activities. And in the end, you gave us a very nice overview of the status of the market and also how the international luxury real estate market is being affected. And you shared with us your idea and your opinion regarding what role government plays, and also the desire of basically the individual and the humankind, and saying, okay, what do I actually want from life? And for the general public, it is not that much. We just want to take part and have a chance, basically. Is there anything else you would like to mention, which we haven't touched upon yet?
No, but I love the way you put that all together, and I thank you for paying attention to it and repeating it, because those are my true values, and I really believe in that. As I said, I'm an optimist by nature, and so I like to provide an optimistic outlook to people in general, people that I come across, people that I can touch, and that comes out at Hammond International, and it comes out in our work in the way we serve every day. Because you are serving, and in the essence of what you do, no matter what you do, if you serve well, you'll be paid dividends in terms of that skill set.
Perfect. How can people reach out with you if they're interested to do business with you and get in contact?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn. The company's on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me through our office, either by calling us or sending me an email. My email is jhammond@hammondinternationalproperties.com. We have two websites that focus on what we do on a daily basis, and one is the company website of Hammond International Properties, and I have a personal website called Jerry Hammond Leadership, which you can also follow and follow our social channels. And I share a lot of what I've learned, what I've done, books that I'm reading. We've created a masterclass here in our own office to create the essence of what we do, and we showcase it to the individuals that work out of our office. We've done a lot of great things, so I hope everybody can benefit from that. Look at what we're doing as an example, and hopefully also adapt best practices. And hopefully we'll meet each other in person one day, because you never know.
Absolutely. That would be, that would be a huge pleasure. Absolutely. Jerry, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, I'm
Thank
sending
you.
the best regards to Toronto and have a good day.
Absolutely. Be well. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. This video is brought to you by HalloCasa. Our tool transforms independent local real estate agents to global real estate agents. Create your own profile for free and get contacted by international investors. Sign up with the link in the description.